Hello and welcome to the Garden Shop How to Garden video. In this video I want to show you how to pot on or transplant your thyme or chamomile seedlings. Now this process can also be done for the likes of dill, coriander and parsley, as they're similar crops. So what we want to do now is just show you our seedlings that we had grown before. We have here at the front is our chamomile, and here at the back of the same 24 cell seed tray is our thyme. And these seedlings were sown about 8 weeks ago. So now we're coming into the middle of spring, and these are ready now for potting on before they will be then transplanted out into the garden when the weather warms up in the beginning of summer. Now what we're going to do here is, because we're dealing with chamomile and thyme, which are low spreading plants, we're not going to treat these as individual plants, but we're going to take a clump and maybe divide it into two and then plant it into the centre of our potting on pot. So I have here in our potting on pot, which is a 9 centimetre pot, I have a mixture of compost, potting on compost and perlite. Now what we have here, the reason why we have this mixture is the compost holds the water and the nutrients, and the perlite as the air and the drainage. Therefore you're getting the ideal growing mix and soil mix for your thyme and your chamomile. They're both like a well drained soil. So I'll just start the process now, and in terms of any sort of transplanting, it's important that you water your seedlings before transplanting them, and you can see that these have been well watered in already. So that's the first step involved in transplanting. The second step involved in transplanting is to in fact prepare where you're going to place your plants before you have them lifted out of the ground. So I'm just going to remove some compost from our pot here. Okay, this is where we're going to transplant our new plants into. So I'm just going to make a hole in the centre of our pot here. So now our seedlings have been watered. We have prepared the site where our new seedling is going to grow, and now we can begin the process of transplanting. So to transplant, what you want to do really is to, in this case, I'm just going to push my finger underneath this cell tray, and you can see the entire compost and plant is coming out in one go. Now what you don't want to do is to do any harm or disturbance to the plant's roots or stems. What I'm just going to do now is I'm just going to try and divide this clump in half. Okay, just divide it, wherever it breaks is where it breaks. And then we can treat this as two separate plants then. Okay, so we're just going to take one, put it aside, and take another one. Maybe you can divide this one 3 times. So you can use a pen, a dibber, there's many different tools that you can use to divide your plants apart. Okay, I'm going to place them down there. And now I'm just going to plant these back into this larger pot. Okay, into the centre of the larger pot. Now the reason for transplanting on is because the seedlings have been growing in their previous pot for 8 weeks now, and after that point the compost in which they were growing would no longer have any nutrients, and they had outgrown the pot that they were in. There was probably no more space for them to grow into it. So now that we have transplanted them on, these seedlings have the ability now to grow. They also have new nutrients, and they have just more space and room to spread out and become larger plants. So now I have them planted in. Just going to add a small bit more compost just to the top of the pot. Okay, and give that a nice press in, just to place compost around it, and give that a nice pressing in. And that's it really. Now we've gone from the smaller 24 cell tray to a larger 9 centimetre pot, and this is basically called a potting on pot. Once you have your plant potted on, it's recommended then that you label it up. So you just want to write up your label, which I will do here now, and it's, in this case it's chamomile, and then the date, and then maybe just in brackets T, because that's when you transplanted it. And now I'm just going to place that into the tray, and then place that pot into our potting on tray that we have here. And that's it really. That would be the process then involved in transplanting your seedlings. We will continue that process now for the rest of these seeds as they need to be transplanted on. And you can see that from this very small punnet, the 24 cell, that we probably have a very large quantity, maybe 50 or even more, maybe even 75 new plants from it. Now the next step involved, after we have now transplanted our chamomile or thyme into a potting on pot of this size, we're just going to let that grow up and really fill out this pot. At that point the true leaves will have emerged more, and this will have really formed one large plant. And then coming into the middle of summer, once it is warmed up outdoors, we can transplant this plant out into its final location where it needs a lot of sunlight and a lot of space to grow and expand. In the meantime, I'm going to keep this indoors in a well lit and warm location where the temperatures will remain regular from day to night, and I will keep it moist at all times. And that's the process really in how to transplant on your herb seedlings. You can do this for thyme, chamomile. You can also do it for coriander, dill and parsley. So that's it, a video from thegardenshop.ie.